My name is Melissa Lee, and thank you for joining us for this class today. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I'm also on the board of 22 Until None. Joining me today are our two instructors, Rick Lamprecht, and he will be instructing us on how to survive the first 90 days in your new civilian career, and Rick Van Unen, and he will be instructing us on success, failure, and entrepreneurship. Rick Van Unen is also my dad. And without further ado, I'm going to let the two of you take it away.
All right, well, thank you. The presentation we're going to give, and I've asked Rick to give me some help on this, is how you survive the first 90 days, because this is very critical in your new job. That first 90 days is when all judgments are made upon you by your peers, by your supervisor, and if you've been brought in by into the company by a search firm, the search firm gives the company a guarantee of 90 days performance. So if you don't cut it in the first 90 days, the search firm has to go find somebody else at no cost to the company. So that's why 90 days is so important. In summary, quick summary, the lesson of this presentation is to blend into your new environment, to blend in so that you're successful. What we're going to also do, the synopsis of this, is we're going to help you identify your best characteristics, your best traits, so that you can present those in an interview and succeed in this new career. Now, all the material that's here, this recording, is yours to keep. It's not copyrighted, and your host can provide this to you in a PowerPoint form or other media, MP4 or whatever, so that you can download this and share it among your friends. Rick?
Okay, you've spent your career in the military in training and succeeding in a unique military culture, and I think that that's something that we can all share. I'm assuming that most of the folks that are listening to this are veterans. I myself am a Marine Corps veteran, served a tour in Vietnam, and I think that one of the things that you have to understand is what you have to sell as a veteran to a job, to a company offering a job. The company offering the job has the cards in their hand. They have what you want. They have the job that you'd like to have, and it's your job when you step in there to sell yourself and your skills, whether they be other than the military or strictly the military. You have to be able to sell those skills in a format that's understandable and seen as important by the employer. So you've got to kind of figure out how you're going to take your military culture, you're going to take your military experiences, and kind of tweak that culture a little bit and tone it down and try and suit yourself into the company that you're applying. Slide.
Now you're
So you must cross the bridge into the fog of contemporary civilian business. It's an entirely new environment. You're coming from a very structured environment to a not so structured environment. You're coming from an environment where you know exactly what is expected of you. You know what you can expect from others, and you know what the reward would be if you were to accomplish your goals, and you also know the other end of it if you fall short. Not going to be the case in the civilian world. They're going to expect that that you want to do the job, not that you're being forced to do the job or being coerced to do the job. There usually is not an or else like there is in the military. The or else in a civilian job is anything from a reprimand to actually losing your job. So you need to figure out what it is in this new environment that you have to offer. And I would say that we have one entire class that we offer down at Camp Pendleton, where I teach classes, as does Rick Lamprecht. We teach a business career seminar. It lasts 4.5 days, and we do it 3 times a year. And we teach people how to take their military skills and the military MOS, what their job classification was, and civilianize it.
You know, one of the lieutenant colonels who was a pilot had told me that he was found that transitioning into the civilian world was the scariest thing he'd ever done. And that our course, as he said in his words, took the scary out. This is a career lieutenant colonel and a combat pilot. For him to be scared of the civilian world, this tells you that there's something truly there to be learned here in these presentations. He was the one who actually described the fact that going across into the civilian world was going into a scary, foggy environment. He'd trained carrying a backpack and a gun in combat environments, and knows what it's like to cross a ravine on a weak or a hand-built bridge. But going into the civilian world across that bridge was even scarier because he didn't know whether there were friends or foes over there or what to expect.
Well, that's right, Rick. And I've had an experience very similar to yours with an attendee at that class who was similar in rank. And he had been in the, and my point of reference would be the Marine Corps because A, I served in the Marine Corps, and B, that's where we teach our classes. But I've had someone similar in rank. It was a colonel that had spent 37 years, I believe, in the Marine Corps. And I had lunch with him, and he said, Rick, I've never been as nervous as I am right now. And he quoted the fact that he'd been deployed into combat 14 times during his career. He said, I am 54 years old, something like that. And he said, I have never filled out an employment app in my life. I have never taken a job interview in my life. He said, I don't even own a suit. Why would I need a suit? I'm a colonel. I know I have what I need to wear in order to do my job. So it is a great big step. And the longer you were in the military, the more of a step it's going to be because the world has changed a lot. If you've been in for 4 years and got out, sure, there's going to be some kind of changes that have taken place. But if you've been in for 30 years and you got out, it's a different world, different expectations, different skill sets required, different methods of getting jobs. All those things have changed. And you really need to bring yourself up to speed on what it is that today's employers are looking for and how to mold and sell yourself to fit that requirement.
When you transition from civilian world into the military world, you go through basic training. And that's a pretty difficult situation for a lot of people. You basically change from an I to a we. Is that correct, Rick?
That's correct. Yeah, you're going to change from an I to a we. In the military, it's all about you and where you're positioned within that organization. And I think that in the civilian life, it's going to be more of a team building and a management by consensus. I think that in the military, you've learned good skills as far as team building, as far as mission assignment, certainly as far as a work ethic, being able to put in the hours that it takes, the integrity that it takes. But I think that in the civilian life, in the civilian world, you're going to find it's going to be quite a bit different because there isn't that structure and the expectation that you can count on everybody. You're going to be walking into situations where you have people that you can't count on. They still have their job there, but they're not reliable like you can count on your other fellow military folks that you served with. You know where they are, you know they got your back, you know exactly what to expect from them. Not going to be the case in the civilian world.
In the civilian world, it's all about individual performance because people will get hired or laid off based upon their performance, not likely based upon the performance of the team.
Right.
Now, you face some very difficult situations as a veteran. I would suppose some of these might have been life-threatening. But it's interesting to note that civilians also have faced difficult choices. I mean, they've got some really tough choices, like whether to have fries or onion rings, whether to have latte or frappuccino, or wear black shoes or brown shoes. The point being is that most civilians are clueless as to what you've endured. That doesn't mean they don't appreciate you, but they don't have any idea what you've been through, and they can't relate to that.
Well, Rick, I'll take it even a step further on that, and I'll be very blunt and very honest, and I hope you appreciate my bluntness in the fact that most employers will say thank you for their service. They don't care. They don't care what you did. They don't care what you faced. They don't care what service you performed. What they care is what can you do to make more money for my company. That's what they care
That's
about.
exactly right. You know, this "thank you for your service" mantra is almost bumper sticker patriotism. When I see somebody in uniform, I actually go up to them and I tell them that I appreciate the freedoms that their sacrifice has given me. I appreciate being an American, and I appreciate being in a strong country. And for that, I appreciate them. It's a whole lot more meaningful, to me at least, to say that than simply "thank you for your service." You talked about the fact that in the military, there's a lot of structure. Talk a little bit more about that, Rick.
Well, I think from the time that you go through your boot camp or your basic training, and maybe your MOS school, whatever line of work you were doing in the military, and you go out into the fleet, into the division, into the greater Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and assume your position in doing whatever it is you were trained to do, you're going to find that you're plugging into a position that is already existing. They're not asking you to reinvent anything. They're not asking you to bring anything in there that never existed before. What they're asking of you, and I should say not asking of you, what they're expecting of you is to perform the duties necessary in the way that they told you and the way that they trained you to accomplish the mission that you've been put in there to do. There is no room for creativity, with rare exception, and they really don't want you to be thinking about new ways of doing something. They want you to get in there and do it the way it's supposed to be done. And that kind of structure is not necessarily what you're going to find in the civilian world. They're going to appreciate thinking out of the box. They're going to appreciate the fact that you looked at a situation and how they've done it for years and maybe came up with a new way of doing it, or a more efficient way to do it, or a more profitable method of accomplishing the same goal.
One of the veterans that I had talked with said that who would simply describe the business world as being one of chaos. He didn't understand it. And I suppose this graphic is about as good a way of explaining that as any. Now, you were recruited into the military for a reason. In fact, there's only two reasons you were actually recruited or you signed up to serve. One was either to win the war or to keep the peace. Basically, these are the two objectives in the military: to win the war or to keep the peace. Those were the reasons, and about the only reason. Now, everything at all that's done in the military is in support of those objectives. Whether you're a cannon cocker, or you're a rifleman, or you're in the supply side, or you're in engineering, or you're in maintenance, or whatever it happens to be, everything that you do is in support of winning the war or keeping the peace. There's no wasted effort. There's nobody that's not involved ultimately in those objectives. Likewise, when you go into a business, you're recruited into civilian business for only one reason. And whatever you're doing, whether you're a truck driver or you're a cashier or a farmer or an assemblyman or a maintenance person, a digger, a janitor, an executive, a salesperson, whatever it is, you're there for only one reason. And that's to help the company make more profit, period. It's the only reason. Now, companies in their brochures and their personnel manuals and all that, they say our goal is to make society better and to promote good health and the American way and da 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 da. That's all important, and to some degree it's true, but they can't do that unless they make a profit. So making a profit comes first and foremost as to why you're going to be hired. So how does a company make more profit? How's that done? Well, there's only two ways. Serving the customer by increasing sales or the capacity for more sales, or serving the profit and loss statement by reducing costs through operational efficiency. Whatever you do is either going to increase sales or the capacity for more sales, or reducing costs. Those are what your ultimate objectives are as an employee of a company. And these are important to keep in mind during the interview process, because if you can come up with these statements as to that you know why you would be hired, it doesn't matter then for what skill you're being hired, because you're hired to increase sales, increase customer involvement, increase the capacity for more sales, which might be increasing production or reducing costs through operational efficiency. If you know that and you can convince the interviewer that you know that, you'll make a good headway in that interview.
Rick, I think I'd like to make a point that the correlation that I think is important, and that is I correlate back to once again to the Marine Corps, and that everybody in the Marine Corps is there for support of the pointy end of the spear, which is the basic rifleman. Everybody is there in support of him being able to do his basic job, which is that's to pull the trigger and be the point person of the Marine Corps. In business, I would arguably say that once again, everybody in the company is there in support of the pointy end of the spear. In this particular case, it's the sales department. Nothing happens within the company until the sale is brought in. You could have the most efficient administration, organization, manufacturing, supply, everything is at the utmost of ability, but none of it operates until an order is brought in the door, and that's brought in from the sales department.
That's right. The entire company is in support of that salesperson, because if the company produces something and the salesperson doesn't sell it, all you have is inventory. And inventory doesn't have much life when it gets old. So how do you convince your company that you know how to, that you know that your goal is to make more profit? How do you do that? How do you convince your recruiter that you can increase sales or profits? Well, the way to do that is to have a profit attitude, not a selfish attitude. You're in it, you go into that interview with the opinion or with the forethought that you're there to help the company. The company's not there to help you. The company has no goals to keep shoes on your children's feet or to keep peanut butter in the sandwiches of their bread so they can go to school and eat lunch. It's your job to help that company, and as a result, they should pay you fairly. So how do you help the company? How do you demonstrate that it is your job to serve that company? Because in that interview, you must demonstrate that you know that it's your job to serve that company. It's not the company's job to serve you. You as a veteran are quality. You got to let that show. You'll be bringing certain specific qualities into this environment that are very unique to you. Let's go through some of these. Now, these qualities are not shared by many civilian applicants. You're unique. Regardless of your MOS, you're bringing these qualities into the workplace, and these are qualities that your employer is looking for. Let's go through them. Discipline. Predictability. You've been trained to think on your feet. You have good on-time habits. So if starting time is at 7 o'clock in the morning, you will be there at 5 minutes until 7, ready to go. The employer can count on you for being there and doing that. You've learned creativity, part of that problem solving. You meet commitments. You know the importance of dedication to mission. That's been preached into you often and often as a career veteran. You put the task above yourself. You follow supervision. You're excellent at problem solving. You have respect for others. You have cleanliness. You're drug-free. You serve with honor. You're a fast learner. And you're tenacious as all get out. These are important qualities that you have that your civilian counterparts often don't recognize that they have, or they may not have. Now, if I were you going into an interview, I would have these written down on a piece of paper, and I'd carry that piece of paper in your pocket, have it ready during the interview, and I'll show you why in a minute. Because during the interview, you could decide to recite these qualities to the interviewer. These are your qualifications. You may be going into that job interview with no experience. You don't know how to do an assembly of a widget. You don't know how to engineer this. You don't know how to fix that. But you do have these qualities which show that you're adaptable, and these qualities are your qualifications. Not that you've got 3 years of experience of a certain function that maybe your civilian contemporary might have. They don't have what you've got, which are these qualities. So you got to let your interviewer know that you've got those qualities by reciting them. You can decide to emphasize these qualities and these traits on your resume if you have one, or certainly in the job application, you mention them, because these are your qualifications for employment. This is important. You'll be hired more for what you are than by what you know. You'll be hired for your qualities as opposed to your skills. You can always learn from your employer how to do certain aspects of the job, and they'll be happy to train you on that. In fact, most companies will train you in their particular way of doing it, even if you've done that same thing for a former company. So you're going to be hired more by who you are than what you know. So don't go into an interview timid and feeling like you don't know anything. It's what you are, not what you know, that's going to get you success. Now, Rick, these are the qualities again. Kind of address this one here. Take it on.
Well, I think what Rick had to say is true, and that's certainly what I look for in my companies. Now, I'm an exception to the rule that I put out there earlier, which is nobody really cares. I am a veteran and I'm an employer, and though I don't do the hiring anymore, the people that do within my company know how I feel about veterans, and they certainly get a leg up on it. But a college graduate's qualification is not necessarily the end-all and be-all. The fact that you have a degree. You are bringing characteristics and qualities and skills to the job set that they don't have. They're coming in with a broader scope of knowledge intellectually, but they certainly don't have the skills on the ground that you've learned over the years that you spent in the military. And that's what the employer is looking for. And like Rick said, I can teach somebody to assemble a product, but I can't teach them to be honest. I can teach somebody to drive a truck, but I can't teach them to have integrity. I could teach somebody to work at the counter and run a computer, but I can't teach them to be kind and teach them to be pleasant with people. Those are skills that I look for, and from there we can develop the exact skill, the exact employee that we're looking for. But if they don't have those basics, if they don't have the work ethic, the honesty, the integrity, the enthusiasm, they want that job. If they don't have that, then I pass right by, even if they do have credentials showing that they've got degrees in computer science, or they've got Lean Six Sigma belts or something like that, or maybe a project manager's course or something like that. Those are all nice, but if they don't have the basic integrity and basic skills that I'm looking for, I'm going to send them down the road.
Well, you know what really irritates me when you look at job requirements is they'll say that a degree is required. You know, if you don't have a degree, don't send your resume in, basically. And I've wondered why companies are that way. And I come to believe the fact that they are only interested in people who set a goal and can meet that goal through a extended period of time for 4 years. That's why they want a college graduate, because they don't want somebody who's flighty. They want somebody who can show that they can persevere. Because whether you've got a degree in art or history or English or a technical skill like computer or engineering, oftentimes the fact that there's just a degree, that's enough to get you into the interview, into the door. Well, in my case, I've got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. Rick, I don't believe you are degreed, are you?
I have an AA degree.
AA degree.
Right.
That's a 2-year program, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, so it's not a 4-year degree.
No.
You are multiple times more successful than I am, certainly. And in the case of those who are my peers, you outshine them as well. So you don't hide on your coattails of a degree for your success. What you capitalize on is your tenacity and your skills that you were trained both as a young child and also as a Marine to keep you successful.
One thing I would add to that, Rick, and how I look at the college degree, I'll kind of piggyback on what you had to say, is I look at someone who has a college degree as having picked up a method of thinking, a logical manner of thinking and problem solving, and I respect the fact that they have picked up that theory, and at the point that they come out of college, that's what it is theory. But the veteran that's coming up to me and applying for a job has not only gotten those theories, but they've actually tried that, they've learned from it, they've had successes, they've had failures, and the fact that they were in the military for 4, 6, 10, 20 years, promoted appropriately, that type of thing would show me that they have taken those theories and put them into actual application and made them work. Much more valuable to me than somebody who has the basic theories.
You know, Rick, in virtually every company I've ever run, there's been a non-degreed person who is the one who really makes things happen. The first experience I had was a guy named Bob Krasner back 30, 35, 40 years ago. Bob was somebody who I could and others in the company could depend upon to cross barriers, to go between departments and actually get things done in a very quality way. I've just basically called that person in my own life a Krasner. Every company I've ever run since then has always had a Krasner in there, somebody who the company could depend on to get things done. And they were tenacious, they were skilled, they were predictable, they did good problem solving. They had all these things that you as veterans have just naturally coming out of your military career. Now in college, I learned such important things like kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. That's the classification of plants and animals in biology. Yeah, I've never yet used that in a cocktail conversation. I've learned so much in college that I've never ever employed. Where else have you ever taken a course in parallelograms? You know, what's that done for you? So don't discount the fact that you are without a college degree if in fact that's your case. You may have a little bit more difficulty getting into that interview because the personnel department likes to do things their way, and if they say it's got to have a college degree, then you got to go around the personnel department and go find somebody else in the company who can make the introduction of you to the hiring authority.
Let me just make a statement overall on that, Rick. I'm taking the position I'm taking on college degrees because I am speaking, I'm assuming, to a group of veterans. And so I'm taking that veteran skill set that you bring and comparing it to a college degree. Now, if you were someone else, a different audience, who did not have the experience of going in the military, and what you were doing was trying to gain the qualifications for a job, college would certainly be a way for you to go as well. But I'm taking the position that I'm taking because of the fact that I'm talking to veterans who've already gained this wealth of experience through their military service.
I agree completely. I'm not discounting the value of getting a college education, but it certainly is not the end all. Now, sometimes in an interview, the interviewee gets lost for words. You know, there's this pregnant pause, if you will, this time when you wish somebody would speak. And sometimes the interviewer creates that themselves. The way to get around that is for you as the interviewer to ask the interviewee this question: how do you see how my qualities can increase your company's profit? Not do you see how I can increase your profits, but ask them, how do they see how my qualities can increase your company's profits? In fact, if I were you and you had that list of your qualifications, your skills on that piece of paper, at the bottom of that piece of paper, or maybe on the other side, I would write this particular question on there. So if there is a pregnant pause during the conversation, you can say, you know, I've got a question, Mr. Interviewer. How do you see how my qualities can increase your company's profits? This will cause that person to really think about what that interview's been about. And it'll help that interviewer spot and verbalize your strengths in their own words, in their own cognitions, so that you will get much further advanced in that interview. So now you got the job. Good for you. You got the offer. Now you've got to succeed, which means you've got to blend in. Rick, talk a little about this, will you?
Yeah, I think that every civilian who has never had a military experience has a perception, whether they like to admit it or not, of the military. And it probably varies according to the branch of the military, and it probably also varies according to what movies they've seen and what stories Uncle Harry's told them over the years and that type of thing. And they have a certain perception of what they can expect when they bring someone freshly out of the military or a veteran into their employment. And frankly, only 10% of our population, I believe, has served in the military. So you're going to walk into a company where the majority, if not all of them, have never served, and they got certain expectations. Depending on the branch, it's going to be different. I know in the Marine Corps, they're expecting quite an aggressive presence when someone shows up, and they're usually quite set aside when it happens to be somebody who has a mild manner but authoritative method of presenting themselves. You need to blend in. So if you, like, let's go back to that last slide where the young man got a job. Okay, he's got his job, his first job out of the military. Now he goes in for his first day at work. The first thing you want to do is get rid of that fact that you are a veteran. I'm not Rick the Marine. I'm not Rick the sailor, Rick the soldier. I'm Rick. And the best way to do that is to ingrain yourself with the employees. And that means that you may have to do some things that maybe are not your favorite thing to do, but let's say, for example, they've got a bowling team. Well, and they've invited you to join the bowling team. It's probably to your best advantage to do that. If they've got some other kind of a group, or they have a group that sits together at lunch and invite you to come sit with them, you really want to get them to know you as a person, not just you as an image, or you as that guy who is coming to us from the soldier or from the Army, from the Navy, fresh from Afghanistan, fresh from Iraq, wherever it is. You don't want to be that person anymore. You want to be Joe, Bill, Bob, Susie, whoever you are, who works over in so-and-so department. Nice person, does a good job. That is your goal, to blend in.
So there are biases on the part of the company about you. In fact, they might even be scared about you. So in this job, going into this job to succeed in this first 90 days, there's 3 F words that you'd want to get to know: form, fit, and function. Let's go into each one of them. Form. This is cultural adaptation. This is where you have to take it upon yourself to understand the culture and the tempo, the moods, all the characterizations that make up the business environment that you're in. In other words, you've got to form yourself to become one of them, not their job to adapt to you. Both Rick and I know of a lieutenant colonel who left the Corps all gung-ho and went to join Caterpillar Tractor in Joliet, Illinois. And in that role, well, of course, Caterpillar is a very military-friendly company and has a long history of working with the military. In fact, they had the graders and tractors and excavators and all that heavy equipment on Iwo Jima. So when he was hired in, they gave him a Caterpillar lanyard to have for his neck, and in that he had his Caterpillar name badge. Well, that wasn't enough for him. So he wound up bringing his red and yellow Marine Corps lanyard and put his identification on his Marine Corps lanyard and wore that proudly. Now you've got 30-year people in that company who are very offended by the fact that this brash, new, bright guy, obviously making a good salary, ready to do something for the company, although they don't know what, would put his military service squarely in their face like that. That really punked them off. And he did not succeed in that environment based upon the fact that his peers did not accept him. So it's your job to form yourself to the company. You can't get that company to adjust to you. fit, become liked, developed congenial interpersonal relationships. If during lunch they shoot hoops, go out there and shoot some hoops. As Rick was saying, this is the time to go get some bowling shoes and go bowl with them. You don't want to alienate your new people. Learn your peers' expectations, adapt to your boss's expectations. And likely the next one is function. Only when you form to the company and fit within your group will you be able to do the work that you were hired to do. Will you be able to function? How do you do that? Excuse me. The business game, it's played differently. Remember, it's your job to adjust to your peers, not their job to adjust to you. This can be kind of traumatic for some people in the head. As Rick has said earlier, leave your rank at the door. You know, since people don't know what the military structure is, I've been told that some people think that colonels make Kentucky Fried Chicken and captains drive ships. They may think the corporal is the guy who's in charge of the place and that sergeants just run around or do drill instruction or whatever. It won't matter what your rank is to these people. So don't use that as a way to segment yourself or differentiate yourself, because it's meaningless conversation. And for anything, it'll alienate you from your crowd that you need to be a part of. Now, in your new job, you might be using the same skills as you used in the military, but you'll be in different dress. You'll be in different form. You might even be doing it according to different procedures. So you got to break from the old job, and that's not the way to do it in the new job. You find out how they do it in the new job and do it that way. Slow down when speaking. As Rick and I have talked about at Camp Pendleton, we put this program on. Well, I was in charge of registrations for a number of years, and 3 or 4 times each session, I'd get a call from something that would go like this. Hello, my name is Sergeant Williams. I want to know what Business 101. I'll sign up. What? Well, my name is Sergeant Williams. What are you saying? Slow down. Well, my name is Sergeant Williams, and I want to see if there are any openings for the upcoming Business 101. Well, then why didn't you say that? Don't speak in military code. You've got your own methods of conversing. You've got your own shorthand. They might be in numerical form. They might be in quick words that mean something to you, but nothing else, nobody else. These are meaningless in the civilian conversation.
Well, Rick, not only is it meaningless, but it's alienating. You're setting people aside because they don't understand what you're talking about, and they may take the perception that you think you're superior to them because you're talking about something that they don't have understanding of. I think you need to keep it to where everyone in the group understands what it is you have to say. So it's up to you to get rid of those codes and those MOS numbers and all those different abbreviations, and dumb it down to something that everybody understands so that they can participate in the conversation as well.
Because there's no communication if there's just a sender. There has to be a receiver to that conversation to make it work. Now, what you have here is a picture of what might be a typical personnel department in a small to medium-sized company. You've got the supervisor in the department, who might be like the lady on the far right in the orange. And then you've got 1, 2, or 3 subordinate people who've got a lot of experience. I mean, maybe as much as 4 years of experience doing this job, and their first job out of school. They don't have a clue what their life is like. They may have some interview skills to interview people, but their skill set is in saying no, to sorting people out, not being inclusive to bringing people in. There's one way that you can really alienate yourself in this, and that's to call these people ma'am. Don't say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. If you're introduced as, hi, my name is Sharon Williams, call her Sharon, not Miss Williams, not Mrs. Williams, not ma'am. It's Sharon. If you introduce to a guy and he comes up, he says, "Hi, I'm Bob Thompson." His name is Bob. It's not Mr. Thompson, regardless of his age, because people love to hear their names spoken. It's music to them. And don't say yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. That's military words, even though you hear it in the civilian side. Because you come with military stripes, they're going to think that you're militarizing the conversation, and that won't be helpful to you.
I think also, Rick, this would be a good time to interject the fact that your expectations of who you're going to be interviewing with, who you're going to be dealing with within a company, who are the people that are going to be able to say yes or no to your application for a job, may not be exactly what you have pictured in your mind. And I'll give you a brief example. We have a speaker occasionally at our class who was a Marine infantry colonel. And in fact, he was a regimental commander. What you would think of as being an infantry commander of days gone by. And he got out and he had an interview with IBM or Microsoft, one of the big companies. And he went down and spent a lot of money on a suit to make himself look as presentable as possible. And his exact words were, "I was waiting for the human resources person, and some little pissant with a ponytail and flip-flops came out, and that was the guy." He said, "I was completely overdressed. I was completely astounded by who I'm seeing. The world is run by people of all different stripes, colors, ages, bents. Do not judge somebody by their appearance. That has no bearing on what their position within the company was. All you have to do is look at the CEO of Apple in his tennis shoes and jeans, and you'll find out that the days of the boss wearing a suit and tie are probably pretty much gone."
Exactly right. And also the fact that if you're a senior enlisted, you've been in the Corps for a long time, or a senior commissioned officer, been in the Corps a long time, the persons you're going to be likely to interview with might be as young as the age of your children. In fact, you may be supervised by a person who's not much older than that. That's just something you have to get used to.
So what you're looking for, I'll interrupt here in just a moment, Rick. What you're looking for is the opportunity to wade through this minefield of people, whoever they might be, whatever they may appear like, however they may treat you, whatever attitudes they may show you. Your job is to wade through this minefield to a position within that company so that you can unveil the tremendous skill set that you have that is going to take you to a position of success within that company. But you can't get in there and show who you are and what you have if you can't get through the front end people, the people in HR, people at the counter, the people who are just looking through your resumes. You've got to get through all of that in order to show what you're all about.
You know, Rick, the last job that I was president of, when there was a new person coming in to interview, I would always ask the receptionist how the receptionist was treated by this interviewee. Sometimes the most quality people would come into that office and treat the receptionist like she was just some clerk somewhere, not treating her with importance or respect, because how they treat that receptionist is how they will treat other people. I would never hire somebody who would be disrespectful to the junior people in the company. Now, there are certain minefields that are existing in companies too. There are certain actions you can take, which are definitely minefields, that stimulate defensive reactions against you. And this will cause you to lose success very quickly. One of which is to use the F word. If you use the F word anywhere in that company, you will get fired. If you violate the personal space of an employee, whether it's male or female, or get a little bit fresh with that person, either male or female, you may get fired. If in the least, you'll get warned and you won't get a second chance. If you're a smoker in an office, carry breath mints. Before your interview, if you take that last drag in your car and you're breath still smells like an ashtray, take lots of breath mints and your clothes are going to reek. Most people that work in offices don't smoke anymore. They can pick the smoker up immediately. While smoker is not a protected class, they do realize the fact that if you're a smoker, you're going to spend an extra half an hour to an hour a day thinking about it and outside smoking as opposed to working. You're not going to be taken seriously as a good employer. So best yet, quit, or at the least, get your Nicorette out so that you can handle your addiction. The last thing that could be a minefield is if you decide your authority as a Marine or as a soldier of any kind comes through like being a drill instructor. Do not treat people like that. I had one situation where I hired a warehouse guy with lots of good experience in the military. When I walked in the morning, about an hour after he started his work, he had my warehouse people lined up on a crack in the concrete, basically standing at attention while he told them what it was all about. We almost had a walkout of the entire company, and we were not union. Instead, what he should have done is met with these people and listened to them to find out what their needs were. Instead, he was treating them like he was the boss, he was the drill instructor, and he didn't last long. Now, particularly Marines, particularly enlisted Marines that I've experienced, they're just as tight as a ball. They're just really wound up tight. Well, the rest of the world is more like this, loose, casual, kind of go with the flow. You need to unwind real quickly to be a part of the civilian work environment. You may have some adjustment to do here to do that, but it's something that's important to do. Now, normally these next two slides are the last ones we give. So let's give them here as kind of an interim pause. Okay, the takeaways so far. You're going to be hired only if you can demonstrate that you know that your goal is to help contribute to profits. Again, you'll be hired only if you can demonstrate that you know that your goal is to help increase or improve profits through either increasing sales or the capacity for sales or cost reduction. Those are the only reasons they're going to be brought in. You'll be brought in as an employee. Yeah, they may say, okay, you're here to do certain tasks, but those tasks are to lead toward better profit. And if you can present to your interviewer that you know that's the case, you'll be very, very far ahead in that interview. The second is you'll be successful in that job and you'll have a career there only after you learn how to blend in. Now, this job that you're taking might not be your end-all job, but you're not going to get to that end-all job you want to be at unless you have a first job. It's important that you get this first job, even if it's underneath what you think your skills are. Get that job, be successful in it, so you can use that job as a platform to get your next job, which might be in that company or within another company that you springboard off of. Now, the last few slides here deal with our current environment. We call this postscript. Deals with the COVID-19 environment. You've got to ask the question, can I find a job in this COVID-19 environment with record high unemployment? The answer is an emphatic yes. Companies like Walmart, Target, dollar stores, Amazon, home service companies, air conditioning repair, locksmiths, bicycle shops, home improvement stores like Lowe's and Home Depot, they are staying open and they're actively seeking and recruiting good new employees. In fact, the Walmart that is by our home has a wall as you enter into the first doorway, a wall with pictures of all their veterans on that wall. And they say, we seek veterans for employment. And that's every one of those people in that wall is a veteran. They're proud of that. They're actively recruiting. In fact, vet-friendly employers might be good for a first a job for a vet because they have been trained to understand what your issues are. They have gone to school, they've gone through vocational training on how to deal with some of the issues that you have experienced, how to relate to you, how you can relate to them. They make particularly good first employers. What are other people doing, civilians doing to find a job? Your competition, basically. Most have stopped looking. They say they've given up. They can't find a job in this environment where it's 13, 14, 15% unemployment. Plus, if they're on any kind of unemployment with some of these perks that have been given by the federal government to help people through this crisis, they may be making more money unemployed than they've been making while employed. So why should they go look for work when they've got a good thing going right now where they've got basically paid vacation? Essentially, civilians haven't been trained to overcome these obstacles, but you have been. You know how to overcome problems and creatively get your way through it. Well, employment is one of those things that you can use your creativity on and get that job when your contemporary civilians won't have the skill set. If you're entrepreneurial, can you start a business during this time with the economy so bad? You bet your bippy. This is a great time to start a business. Why? Because if you want to be in competition with somebody who's in business already, that's struggling with the shutdown, they are likely in deep financial doo-doo. They've had 4 months of no revenues, but meanwhile their expenses have continued. You can come into that business with no expenses and start fresh, capturing business that they have basically will be losing out on. It's a good time to start a business. You won't have the burdensome debt that your contemporaries have. How about buying a business? Can you buy a business with the economy so bad? Absolutely. It's a great time to buy a business. Remember, the people who are in those businesses right now are in deep trouble. They may be in trouble with their bank. They may be in trouble with their spouse who's been working hard in a regular job to pay the expenses on that business, which is faltering. There's all kinds of reasons why you can be successful as an entrepreneur. In fact, if you happen to know a business person who's in trouble, maybe you can go in as a partner with a person. Say, hey, I'd like to buy 50% of your business. Let's go in this together. Together we can make this successful. You take whatever money you've got to it, and maybe some family loans that support you, and go buy a portion of his business. Or what you can do is reorganize that business, take it into Chapter 11, buy the assets of this business, leave the seller with the liabilities that he bankrupts out. Now you've got a business with the assets, which include your customers, your business base, the name of the business, all the fixtures that might come along with it, and you don't have any debt that goes along with it. It's an ideal way to make a transaction. You do that pennies from a dollar from a banker. The last slide, Rick. I bet you could relate to this. The business world respects veterans, don't they?
They do, as long as they're profit-generating veterans.
And in that way, we civilians who have not served are deeply appreciative of the freedoms that people who have served have given us. And it's because of those skills that we talked about earlier in that list that you're going to carry into an interview. Because of those, employers actually are seeking you out. So you've got to show your availability. You will be successful. And I, for one, and I'm sure Rick and Melissa also in the same, as we wish you good health. This is the end of this presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Rick and Rick, for that presentation. I know we learned a lot from that. It was a very positive and motivating presentation. And we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
It was our pleasure.
Thank you for the opportunity, Melissa.
Thank you.